Okay, so this is going to be a video series on creating a website. We're going to start out with the HTML, CSS, and we will work up to using ASPX with HTML and CSS to build a dynamic website that you can interact with, users registering, and everything else you could possibly think of. But right now, this is going to focus just on HTML and CSS. We are going to be using a CSS framework. It makes things so much easier and simpler. Everything is automatically aligned and sized up. Very professional looking. Drupal, I believe that's how you say it, uses 960 grid, which is what we will be using with their software for themes. So you're going to need to download it. If you see me drag stuff from the other monitor, that's why, because I have two monitors ready. So you're going to need to download it, and here's the website. 960 grid system. You can download it at 960.gs. 960.gs. You're just going to hit this big button that says big old download button, smiley face. And if you scroll down, you can see some of the websites that have been built using this. You can see that it's a very, very professional thing. Sony Music even uses this. Drupal, as I said. Fedora Project. And there's so many of them, couldn't count them. Sacramento International Airport uses it. We're going to go ahead and download these. It'll come down here. I already have it downloaded. It's in my 960 grid folder. Go ahead and open it so you can see what files are in here. Here's all the files. There's a readme file. There's templates you can open up in Photoshop and Illustrator, whatever. And the code files in here. 960 grid, everything in there. You'll need to import those into HTML. We'll get there. But we are going to be building a very simple website. Right here, this is what I made. I just made it real quick. Design is not all that great. That's not the point of these videos. Design is an entire new subject. It will take a lot longer than learning HTML, CSS, and C# for ASPX. But this is what ours is going to look like. A simple YouTube video project, login, register button, and just random pages that could come in handy. We'll put a slideshow here or just an image or whatever. I have 3 sections of content, 2 down here, 1 right here. Very, very simple. It might change as we get through the HTML because things may not work out, or we might find something that looks a lot better. But this is what we're going to be working with right now. I will be using Microsoft Expression Web. It is a fantastic piece of software. If you're a student and your school has registered for DreamSpark, you can download it there. There's numerous other ways you can get it. There's trials, or you could use Notepad. It works just as well. There's plenty of free alternatives such as Notepad++ will work for HTML, CSS, and once we get into the ASPX part, you can use Visual Studio. Even for HTML and CSS, you could use Visual Studio Web Express, I believe that's what it's called. Or you can download the Visual Studio Professional from DreamSpark if you're a student. Or you can buy it. It's quite expensive. It's $3,000 or $4,000 for the cheapest one. So we're going to go ahead and open up Microsoft Expression Web. Let's see, it's a very beautiful splash screen that takes forever to load. While we're waiting, we'll discuss some of these things. 960 grid is divided into columns. There are 3 different ways you can use it. You can use 12, 16, or 24 columns. 24 columns will be the most precise. You can make smaller adjustments. 12 is one we'll be using. It is the simplest and best one in my opinion. There's so many things that can divide into it that work fantastic. Each section is 60 pixels, should add up to 960 with the margins on each side. It's a very simple system. Very, very simple. So, once you get your thing opened or whatever, we're going to be making a new site. I'm using Microsoft Expression Web, so I will make it with Expression. It'll probably look different for yours. Or you can just make folders, or you can save it to your desktop if you want to be messy. It works. And here's our default page. Now, what we're going to need to do is drag our CSS files from 960 grid into the folder where your website is going to be stored. So I'm just going to drag it over here. It works. Everything's in there. I'm going to go ahead and open up the HTML page. I like using IDEs. It makes simple tasks so much quicker, such as importing a CSS file. You can go over here and just attach style sheet, browse, and you can choose them. What we're going to need to do is we're going to need to import the 960 CSS file, the reset CSS file, and the text CSS file. Whoa. Oh, I guess it'd help if I press the right button. No, it won't let me click both. So, go ahead and import these one at a time, if that's what you so choose to do. Or you can type it out. Reset. Need text. Okay. Style sheet. Browse. 960. As you can see, here are the things that it imports. Link, href, css/text.css, rel, style sheet, type, css/style sheet, close tag. Fairly simple. If you're typing it, I'll zoom in on this so you can see it. You can pause the video if that's what you choose to do. Now, once we have this, we need to set up our main page. Since we're using 960 grid, we need to tell it that we'll be using 12 columns. So go ahead and open a div tag in your body. It is a class. You're going to need to div class equals quote container 12. This is going to divide up our page into 12 columns. Going to make everything so much simpler. Make sure you close that tag. I like to have everything after one set, tab it in. It's an organization thing. After you start really getting into web development, this is going to be a very, very nice habit to have. You won't be jumping around all the time looking for things. I also recommend commenting everything. Makes everything so much simpler. You can comment in HTML by it's a less than sign, exclamation, dash, dash, and then you can type your comment. We'll go ahead and start header. And then to close it, dash, dash, greater than sign. And that will not appear. See, down here you can see the preview. See, it's 12 columns, 960 pixels wide, so you can see it's not all the way across like it would be if it was regular. So now that we're in the container 12, we're going to want to tell it how many columns we want for our title or our logo or whatever you want in the top. You're going to go to div, class, grid, and there's so many of these. You can choose up to 12 if you're using 12, 16 if you're using 16, or 24 if you're using 24. If you don't want to have all these extra ones that you're not using, instead of importing 960.css, you can import the 960 underscore 12 column, 16 column, or 24 column. If you don't like it, it's really up to you. It all does the exact same thing. I just imported 960 in case for some reason I wanted to change in the later. You can use both container 12 and container 24 and 16, whatever. Now that we're in grid, we need to decide how big we want our logo. I'm assuming it should probably go half across the page. We'll do 6. Half of 12 is 6. Go ahead and close the div. There you go. Now you can type your logo. YouTube video project. Type down here. It'll show it. See, right here is half 460 pixels. See right here the margin on the left. It should be about 10 or 20 pixels. I'm terrible at this math right now. It does it automatically. We're going to be making a new CSS file, so we don't want this to be just plain black text, and doing it within the HTML is a horrible habit to get into. It's so annoying whenever you have to work with somebody else's code. Go ahead and new not JavaScript. We might get into JavaScript. I don't know if this tutorial series will go that far. CSS, we're just going to call it style. If you're not using an IDE, you can go ahead and make a style.css file wherever all the other files are and open it. A CSS file is a cascading style sheet. It is for styling your web page. Whatever you type in here will not directly change anything. This is an external file. You will have to import it into your HTML file. Go ahead and add another style sheet if you're using an IDE, or type it style. Okay. Go back to it. A style sheet, you're always going to start with either an IDE or a class. An IDE can be used for one thing. A class is for many things. So we're gonna go ahead and ID logo. Start all IDs off with a number sign, or pound sign, or hash mark, whatever you want to call it. And then it's going to open with brackets. Like just about every coding language out there that's based off of C will open with brackets. And here's all the things we can do with CSS that are within Expression Web. There's more. You can do CSS3. I don't believe Expression Web supports CSS3 as autofill, whatever. IntelliSense, I guess that's what it's called. But you can do just about anything else. So we're going to change the font size. Font size. You can either choose extra large, XX large, smaller, larger, or you can just pick a length. We'll do 40. You always want to end every line in your CSS file with a semicolon. There are other things, those are not really ending lines, they're open parentheses, and then you go multiple lines. But we probably won't get into that. So font size, it doesn't change anything. So we're going to need to go in here and add an ID to this div. ID equals logo. Make sure you only have one quote on each side. You can see it makes it bigger. And it looks okay, but it looks a little too close to the top. So I'm going to move it down a little bit. Font size. Now we're going to go to margin. Margin. You can do margin. You do all four. 0, 0, 0, 0, or 10, 10, 20, 10, whatever. Or you can just do one at a time. I prefer one at a time. It's just easier to read to me. There are plenty of other ways to do it. You either type it or pick length if you're using an IDE. We're going to do 15 pixels. And go back. You can see it moves it from the top a little bit. And if we looked at this in the browser, I'm using Super Preview. Super Preview is a specific thing to Microsoft Expression Web that you can see a thing in multiple browsers, because things will look different in every browser, because every browser sees or reads it differently. So there are multiple tools out there that you can do this in. Some of them are web-based, some of them you download, some of you have to purchase, like Microsoft Expression Super Preview to purchase it. See, this is what our web page looks like. So far, so good. We got our web page set up and our logo. start the next video with something more.